Alright, so the next scene we have is Wren leaving the Tosaka mansion for school, and she's about to weave her house with a bounded field for intruders before she takes off. You know, I'm a mage, I gotta be cautious, but honestly, I don't know why I have to be so careful because nobody's really been over here since I've been in this house. Not a child, not an animal, not a robber. And one thing that really piqued my interest here is that she goes on to say, I don't even think my neighbor has said hey to me. And it's really surprising that we haven't seen any interactions with her neighbor, considering how meta Fate can be. Even if it's just her saying hey or bye, just seeing her coming and going, we've never seen anything like that. The neighbor is always treated as this outside force that doesn't exist. I would have liked to have seen more of these interactions. It would have been nice to see her have a neighbor like Arahiko from Tsukihime. A lot of you guys probably don't know who Arahiko is. He's the best friend of the main character Shinji. But the main point is that he's always there to lend an ear to Shinji and give him support. And at first, I didn't really think anything of Arahiko. I thought he was a really good dude. And as the story progressed, I seen so many people change and flip sides that I was just sitting there waiting for something to happen to him. It's like, okay, so what is he? I get to the end of the story and Arahiko is just a regular dude. And I feel like sometimes you really need that in the story, and that's okay. You just really need a lot of those regular people around. There's just not anything. They're not transforming. They're not here trying to burn the city up. They're just chilling. They're just doing them. It's a nice contrast to everybody that you meet having these ulterior motives. And that's why it's nice to have a lot of people from the school around in things like Ataraxia specifically, where you do get those interactive slice of life scenes that you weren't really able to get to in Stay Night, at least from people outside the main cast. So she pulls up to the school, and the first person that she runs into is Ayako, who is the leader of the school's archery team. They have a little back and forth, and it kind of exposes more of Wren's personality, her understanding how cold she is as a person, Ayako kind of making a joke about it, and them having this ongoing competition to see who would end up in a relationship first. Then later on in the conversation, she finds out that she actually showed up to school early, the implication there being that removing the catalyst for Archer from the basement, the pendant, made all of her clocks go haywire. So she left the crib an hour early and nobody's at the school yet but them. Ayako's really chill. She likes to joke around a lot. Wren runs into a lot of people when she's at school, but she's one of the only ones that she considers as a friend. And even she says that Wren gives off two different personas when you compare the one when it's just them talking and the one that Wren shows to everybody else at school. She even encourages Wren to join more clubs and be more involved. And she already knows that Wren is lying when she says that she's not athletic enough, especially considering that Wren beats her in nearly everything. And then Sakura comes in behind the two. So at that point, Ayako says, hey look, I got a dip. Naturally, Wren follows right after, and the interaction between her and Sakura is just a casual hi and bye. They don't really say anything more than that. Very awkward situation. The moment that she goes outside, she runs into Shinji, and he's basically hawking her down, saying that, listen Wren, I know you've been checking me out during archery class, so I'm just trying to see what's up. First of all, I'm gonna need you to give me several feet. I don't like people up on me like that. Second, I am not into you. The reality is she was actually checking Shiro out, if you're familiar with the pole jumping scene, and Shinji just happens to be there and he got the wrong idea. And she's thinking for all the good that people say about him, he's really just all show. If he was more mature, it wouldn't be that way. And when she dubs him, this kind of has him feeling away, like real bitter. And while we're on Shinji, we might as well dig into it. In the last video, I've seen people saying that Shinji is the greatest character in Fate Stay Night. And I'm sure they're trolling, but just in case that they're not, I like Shinji too for different reasons, but I wouldn't dare say that he's anything close to being the best character. People like to bring up Fate Extra CCC a lot, and that's because most people haven't seen it, but I've been through it, and honestly, it's not that he's just some brilliant character in Fate Extra CCC, it's just that he's such a shitty character in the main canon that even him just being decent of a person, people are just blown away, and that's really bad. So instead of gassing him up for being a regular character like everybody else because the bar is just that incredibly low, I'd much rather see more conversations about how he could have addressed the way that he was or how he could have did things to prevent it. And there's a lot to unpack with that because we all know who raised him. Everybody's got growing pains, and you can't tell somebody how to receive a situation. One person might receive a situation and it not bother them at all, and then the other person go through the same thing and they might be drastically tarnished for life. That's just the way it goes. In Shinji's case, he was brought up in a household where being a mage is the first and the only thing. So the natural response to his actions will just go be a good person. And that's the easy thing to say. And you can say that about people in real life. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Don't take things to heart. You just gotta wait your turn. But that's not realistic. There's always gonna be criminals. There always has been. Where there's society, there's gonna be conflict. So to say just be a good person, obviously that doesn't work for Shinji. Because in his mind, he grew up in a household where no matter what type of good job he gets, no matter if he meets a good significant other, if he's doing all the right things in the world, all of that pales in comparison to being a good mage because of Zoken. And he's already seen how going against being a mage can end up. He's seen Karya, and he's seen his father not be able to make contributions by default. You are who you place yourself around. And since he grew up with Zoken, which was completely out of his control, he became Zoken. He became a pred, he became an abuser, he became consumed with chasing after one thing, and if he doesn't get his way, everybody else is at fault. Being a magus is the only real thing of value to him. If you've seen Shinji's backstory with Shiro, you know that he wasn't always a bad person. So the older that he gets, the idea of him meeting that standard starts to come alive. If you notice, the story flat out tells you that Shinji is actually pretty popular in school, believe it or not. People like him. The dude literally had his own set of fangirls. In the very same interaction that he had with Wren, it tells us he's the vice captain of the archery club and the owner of half the hearts of the girls in the school. Kind of an idol. Good looking, good grades, sociable, and kind to women. And she's getting this information from everybody else. This is what everybody else is telling her about him. But of course, when he leaves school, there's a dark turn. What I would have liked to see is him check into some type of mental facility to address these situations. The halfway house Shinji arc. But then he needs money. You know, mental facilities are not cheap. And he's still a kid. So at that point, he would need some type of support system to even get there. And the only person that would be is Zoken. And Zoken's not finna put him into a mental ward because the way he sees it, he's just being a mage. He doesn't think about it like he's corrupting this child. But before I empathize with you, you gotta wanna change yourself. And I had this conversation the other day. We got to talking about homeless people, for example. I don't know what you've been through to end up in that situation. That could have been out of your hands. But at the same time, a lot of people know what they're doing and they just completely forego all of their responsibilities, and then they want somebody else to dig them out of it. Now, I'll see homeless people and sometimes I'll give them some bread. And in my mind, I'm like, you're probably just gonna smoke the shit up because it's a grimy game like that. But I'm hoping that you would do otherwise. And the same thing goes for Shinji, and this is why it would be very difficult to fix his character because he has to make a conscious effort to do better for himself. And he's not really the type of character that's been shown to do that. At the very best, we just get the reset button and get him in a different series. But you can't just pull out a counterpart and just expect us to forget all the things that he's done in the main canon. You don't just roll that off by getting a counterpart and being normal. Even with Wren, you can tell that he was jealous of Wren just by the way that he looks at her, by the way that he interacts with her. But what he doesn't know is that it's a high cost to be in that position for her. Same thing with Shiro. You can tell that he's jealous of the relationship that he has with Sakura, almost like Shiro is prying Sakura away from him. and in his mind, Sakura belongs to him. That's the only thing in his life that he's been able to dominate, because it certainly hasn't been the world. In the real world, he's let Stockholm Syndrome kick his ass his entire life. And the reason that he's so jealous of Shiro is because he knows that it's real. See, I mentioned that he's very popular at school, but those relationships are shallow. They're superficial. So when the lights go down and he goes home and has to be by himself, and he realizes that he'll never be what he actually wants to be, those friends at school, which are merely decoration, they aren't going to do you any good. He would much rather have that one organic relationship that Shiro has with Sakura. But when he had the opportunity, he chose to do the opposite because he decided to let his childhood define him. And that's another contrast that I really like between him and people like Shiro and Wren. All of them got bad backstories, but what do you do with it? You can't play victim forever. Shiro and Wren could have easily took the same route that Shinji did and just hated the world because of all the things that's happened to him. But that's a coward. Shinji has got to stop being a coward.